Somewhere, sometime, in some place during our childhoods, we as individuals came to a conclusion that we were either creative or we were not, that we were either good at art or that we were not. But I've always found this notion quite strange and quite sad, to be honest. As soon as we were given markers, crayons, and pencils, and pens, and a place to use their powers, we began to create. Without much worry or thought, we learned to take the materials in front of us and use them in the ways that we saw pleasing, and it was truly beautiful. During this golden age of our lifetime, it was nearly impossible for us to go without creating an original work of art, something straight from our imaginations, the very definition of creativity. Every self-portrait we scribbled, every make-believe animal we colored, every dream world we constructed was made for us. We were in a perfect Goldilocks stage where our uncertainty of the world fused with our over-imaginative brains, and we created and made art, and we used our favorite colors, and we drew our whole family as stick figures, and got acrylic paint everywhere we shouldn't have, and most beautifully of all, we did this without caring what others thought of what we had created. But maybe that isn't entirely true. Because I know I used to smile and feel a sense of pride my young body could not possibly explain when I saw a Joey Simmons original hanging in the prestigious art gallery which was the front of the refrigerator. In that sense, I cared what my mother and father thought, and I cared about what they would say to me when they would closely examine the watercolored wrinkled page that had consumed me like the rabbit hole Allison had fallen into. So in that way, I continued to create art in such a natural way, as we all did. I'm not sure we could tell you we were making art at all. But soon, our handwriting as we signed our names to our work got neater, and we began to stay more inside the lines as we colored, and I'm afraid that's where things might have started to go astray. In art classes and classroom assignments, we began to make calculations about the value of the artistic work sitting in front of us. In a way, the problem began when we stopped looking at our art and started looking at the art that sat in front of our peers. Slowly but surely, their colors may have begun to seem brighter, their Crayola dream worlds more fantastic, and their markings more inside of the lines. And while I cannot pinpoint the time or the date, I myself had begun to focus too closely on the artistic work of my peers, which I viewed as superior, until finally something had shifted internally to the point that I had convinced myself that I was not creative, that I was not good at art. And subconsciously I held that thought with me as I grew up and as I walked into the photography classroom for the first time my sophomore year of high school. As we began to experiment with film photography, something wonderful was happening, but I just couldn't see it yet. And that precisely is the beauty of film. Unlike the abstract colorscapes that became the occupation of our childhood, film is very much a hidden art, one that can only be put next to appears to be subliminally compared by our insecure minds until the very end of the process. First, you must adjust your aperture and focus 24 times, only receiving reassurance about what you are creating through the soft click of the shutter. Next, you must retrieve your film from your camera and develop it in complete darkness as to not corrupt your roll. It is not until this point of the process where you're able to hold your film up to the light to see any sort of indication of what you've made, and still, you do not have a photograph. The process then brings you into the darkroom, where your creation is transformed from film to photographic paper. What makes this process so special is the attention to detail that goes into centering your image, focusing your image, adjusting the intensity of light that will shine, and determining how long you will allow that light to be exposed to your photographic paper, a process which is remarkably similar to a young child meticulously focusing on coloring a prized work of art. Finally, after centering, focusing, and exposing, you have a seemingly blank paper that is ready to become a photograph. In the dark room of my high school, 3 large tubs of clear liquid sat on the back wall of a room not much bigger than a closet, and double dog dared me and other high schoolers to see just what we were capable of. The very first time I accepted this dare, I gently placed a blank piece of photo paper into one of the tubs and witnessed it slowly change from nothingness to something. In front of me, the submerged blank paper transformed into crisp and defined blacks and whites and lines and patterns and shapes, and light and absence of light that all somehow came together to become my first film photograph. I would go on to repeat this process hundreds of times, and every time I was still somehow amazed that a photo could come out of it. And I want to say that I'm thankful for this process because it has allowed you to see some of the photographs I have created, and it allowed me to see that I am creative and so-called good at art, just like the rest of us, even if we don't always believe it.